very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out from your work schedules to join us for this webinar today titled Embrace APIs to Build and Grow Digital Enterprise. I know with the season we've been having for the last 9-10 months, online has become the real world, but to an extent, obviously, it's led to a little bit of frustration on various fronts. So making you go through another session, we apologize for that, but I'm sure after an hour, you'll see value for the time you've invested with us, because from what we are seeing amidst our customers, this is something which is driving as a key pillar the digital transformation across enterprises, specifically in the financial services vertical, which we as an organization focus on. So having said that, over the next hour or so, what we plan to do, essentially, we'll just quickly touch base on NSEIT and our partnership with Kong, because at the end of the day, I think it's very important for you all to also understand the value or credibility we bring in for you to potentially consider us as a partner on a journey around digitization, because everybody is talking around it. We'll talk about the overall app modernization practice, which I think is the overarching umbrella under which this entire API story falls in. And obviously, we'll take you through the specific platform, which we have seen a lot of faith and belief in from an API perspective, which is Kong. And you'll also see a real line demo of the same. Without further ado, let me just quickly touch upon NSEIT. I think there's a perception in the market that NSEIT does business only with NSE. We are an IT arm of NSE. Having said that, we are actually 100% subsidiary of the National Stock Exchange. So the financial industry is a part of our DNA. That's how we have grown. We built products as a heritage in the financial sector. And as we have evolved, we've been around for about 20 years now. As we have evolved, we have spread our wings, and today we work with significant number of clients in the financial sector, including banks, insurance companies, NBFCs, and even the regulators on both sides, which is the RBI and IRDA. So there's a significant domain expertise which we bring to the table. We have a presence across 270 odd cities in India because of digital examination business, which we run with most organizations, roughly about 2,000 people. So we have 1,600 people as a part of the digital team. In addition, we acquired a cybersecurity consulting company last year, OGIS, which is about 500 odd people. So I think what has helped us differentiate and has helped us work with some of these esteemed customers, I think, are two things. One is, though we bring in the credibility and say the required certifications and the maturity that organizations are looking for at service providers like ISO CMMI level 5, at the same time, we bring in a startup culture. And that is a core need of most customers today, that I need a partner who would be flexible with the way I work, who can help me introduce new products into my ecosystem, which have been successful globally, so that I become a more nimble and agile organization for my business, right? And that is where I think NSEIT has sweetly positioned itself. We come in with the maturity of a proven partner. At the same time, we bring the domain expertise and the agility that possibly a startup brings in. And as a part of that culture, we've tried to identify right fit platforms in each area where we offer our capabilities to customers. And that's where we found Kong to be a very ideal fit as an open source option to the API story in the digital transformation journey. So if you come to think of it, like what are organizations typically looking at when they're talking of digital transformation? Everybody is talking of digital transformation to a great extent. I would say it's also become a buzzword, a marketing jargon. It's very loosely used at times. So it's very critical to understand how do I apply this entire concept of digital transformation in real life projects on the ground so that I can demonstrate value on the ground rather than just a core digital transformation story. That is where NSEIT, we put our thoughts behind what are the key drivers based on the projects we are doing or the experiences we have where there is tangible impact on a person's or an enterprise's business using certain pieces which comprise what creates the digital transformation story. And that's where application modernization, business transformation, and data analytics were the conscious choices which we chose to invest in. And when I say invest in, it's build capabilities, do R&D to figure out uh, because one shoe doesn't fit all. So in what kind of scenarios, which are the platforms which fit better for what kind of a business need? And that's where we've identified some of these platforms which you see on the screen and partnered with them to take forward to our customers a joint value proposition in the space of app modernization, business transformation, and data analytics. So just to quickly touch upon what exactly we mean by app modernization. So today, as you would be aware, all said and done, there's a lot of legacy we still deal with. But the world has opened up, and we need to figure out ways of how do I marry legacy with new to ensure I have a more sustainable, secure, and future proof IT landscape in my ecosystem. That is where this entire APIification story has really, I would say, surfaced as a great winner in enabling organizations to become more open. So we are all talking about sandboxes. We are all talking about the regulators bringing in sandboxes. We are talking about the open banking piece which has come into our industry. But how has all this happened? Finally, there's a technical backbone to all of this, and the API piece plays a very core part in enabling businesses to open themselves to the ecosystem as well as absorb what the ecosystem provides you. And that's the core theme of our entire presentation today as to how NSEIT and Kong leveraging this new gen platform can help you embark on the open ecosystem journey, leveraging app modernization with APIs. So we've typically looked at, if you look at what value we bring in as partners to be potentially considered somebody who could enable your business. We bring in the expertise to help you modernize your legacy systems. All said and done, when we are talking of an open environment, it is all about customer centricity. Omni-channel is very key. How do you enable a new gen customer experience, providing your platforms in that space? And how do you kind of future proof it? So today there are two challenges you're dealing with. One is how do you marry your legacy with new? But at the end of the day, how do you carry it forward so that you don't have to do it over and over again? So how do you ensure you can survive in a microservices cloud kind of an environment? So it's all about future proofing your infra ecosystem or application ecosystem. Last but not the least, I think what we have seen has also been a challenge in most customers, that the business models are changing and the patience levels are reducing. So when business comes to IT, they would want IT to enable changes to support the changing business models, but they don't have time to wait. So how do you create that kind of an agility in the organization so that you can rapidly create digital assets in very quick time and add value to your business people? To cover all of this in the next 50 odd minutes, we have two experts who have been there, done that, has helped multiple enterprises on this journey at various stages, right from people who are starting up with this journey to people who are maturity, but they need scalability. So how do I bring better management? How do I bring scalability in my APIification journey? The highest level of maturity, there are experiences we've had on how do I then monetize this entire thing. It's just not an internal thing of opening up with APIs, but how do I have a more managed service where I can also monetize some of these pieces that I am building, which is revenue at the end of the day. So I'd be happy to introduce Praveen. Praveen Pillai is Vice President at NSEIT. Uh, Praveen basically looks at the overall digital delivery of NSEIT for global clients, and uh, he brings in a significant amount of expertise. He's been with the in the IT industry for close to quarter of a century. He has successfully deployed large-scale complex projects in banking, insurance, financial services, e-learning, and healthcare in India and overseas markets. And with deep technical expertise, I think since I work very closely with him, he brings in a lot of customer centricity in the entire product lifecycle management, which he's also got from startup ecosystem. So he excels and spearheads the implementation of business enabling technology for our customers. So we'll hear a lot from him. But before that, we'll want to introduce the other expert we have from our partner Kong and the platform we are talking about today. So I'm happy to introduce Degui Zhu. Degui is a solutions architect at Kong and also a domain expert in the API space, including various facets, right? API management, integration, and other middleware solutions as well. Degui is very passionate about open source and technology and has worked closely with customers and partners across Asia Pacific region in helping them build their digital transformation journey. So before we move into the remaining part of the webinar, I'll quickly request you to respond to the poll that will come up on your screen, because this will help us fine tune your expectations from the session and also help us add more value to the time you're investing with us today. So you see 4 questions out there, 4 options to a question. But what we really want to understand, because every business is different, your stage of maturity is different. So what are you looking to achieve through APIs? Everybody is talking API, but what's the purpose? So we'll give you maybe another 30 odd seconds to respond. Request all participants to respond, because that will also throw light on the various facets of importance of various things like business revenue, customer experience, etc., which play a critical piece to what APIification is trying to achieve in the real world. Fantastic. So it's very interesting. So definitely, as expected and as what we have seen on the ground with the customers we work with, which Praveen will also walk you through, operational efficiency of integrating legacy with new is the biggest driver behind API-driven modernization initiatives. But at the same time, obviously, innovation, monetization, and customer experience becomes key. And I'll pass it on to my colleague, Praveen, who will take this forward and deep dive into what value the API story is bringing in to modern enterprises from a digital transformation perspective. Over to you, Praveen.
Okay, thanks, Arpan, and good afternoon, everybody. So let's get started by saying that APIs are everywhere. And for that, let's try and understand the problem space. What exactly is the challenge and what is the need of the hour? So enterprises today have a lot of legacy systems. And what are the problems with these legacy systems? Most of these have been constructed using proprietary legacy technologies / programming languages. And it becomes extremely difficult to communicate with these systems and to be able to extract information from them. Now, considering the dynamic business environment that we deal with, it is literally mandated that all of these systems must be able to talk to internal systems as well as external applications. Secondly, regulatory requirements have been becoming more and more stringent day by day. And there is humongous amount of compliance reporting that needs to be done by organizations. So all this put together, this becomes a huge challenge for legacy systems to deal with. So that is where APIification comes in and helps you jump onto that digital transformation space. So now if you look at the omni-channel enablement part of it. So let's say that you have an API layer built on top of your existing applications. Now, irrespective of whether you want to build a web front end or a mobile front end, or you want to integrate with a third-party application, what you're essentially providing is JSON over REST. So now, since this is language neutral, this enables pretty much every entity to be able to integrate with your system. Once that happens, you have basically enabled information exchange across systems. When information exchange starts happening, your business processes start talking to each other. If you look at a legacy scenario wherein there is person A who does an export from application A, and then he gives it to person B who does an import into application B. That is not, the way you would want to be communicating. You want the systems to talk directly to each other, and that is when we will achieve true seamless business process integration with a high turnaround time. Now, open banking is a classic example of a use case wherein there is a humongous ecosystem comprising of aggregators, financial information users, financial information providers, and if all of their applications have to start talking to each other and integrating with each other, then APIification is the name of the game. So moving on to the next slide. So let's understand, what does API management comprise of? What are the various components? So if you look at the top right corner, it all starts with design, development, and testing of your APIs. So you define your API specification. So which is basically, what are the input parameters that your API would expect? What is the output response that is expected from your APIs? Then you would provide a backend implementation for these APIs, followed by testing the APIs. Now, once these APIs are ready, the second aspect is deployment. From a deployment perspective, you also need to pay attention to the performance characteristics and scalability of the APIs to cater to peak volumes. Now that your APIs are deployed and hosted, the next component is, how do you expose your APIs to the external community? So that is where the developer portal component comes in. So this would typically be, dev.yourorganizationName.com. So this is wherein you advertise your API products. This is where interested parties would come and register for an account, browse through your API products, try out your APIs, subscribe to your API plans. And when you do that, you get a set of credentials to access these APIs. Now, once you have the credentials, the developers will then go about building their web applications or mobile applications to consume these APIs. Now, once the consumption starts, what essentially happens is these applications send requests to your backend via the API gateway. So now if you look at the top left, we speak about limits, quotas, throttling, etc. So based on the plan which the developer has selected, the API gateway is responsible for authenticating that this is a valid user of the system, and to also be able to impose restrictions on the API traffic, etc. So if the developer has subscribed to like 1,000 requests per month, he will not be allowed to make a 1,001th request. So the gateway provides the authentication part of the equation and the traffic control and limiting and throttling part of the equation. While all this is happening, monitoring kicks in. You have health metrics, various kinds of logs, alerts, and notifications. Now, this information also flows into the analytics module, which is responsible for providing all kinds of statistics, reports, charts, graphs, dashboards, etc. Now let's speak about two interesting use cases that NSEIT has actually implemented in the space. The first one is an API management solution for a trading platform. And this was launched at the Singapore FinTech Festival in November 2019. Now, the objective of this particular implementation was to be able to enable fintechs onto the stock exchanges trading platform, which otherwise used to be a closed group system with a specific set of front office solutions vendors, and they were the only ones who could communicate with the trading platform. So here the idea was to be able to provide a sandbox environment so that fintechs get access to the exchange infrastructure to carry out their innovative experiments, etc. And this promotes app development in this particular space. If you look at the features part of this use case, you will be able to correlate to whatever I mentioned on the previous slide. So you get to define and publish your API products, associate billing plans with those. implement a developer portal for onboarding the fintechs, provide various kinds of documentation, access to the real-time data feed over internet, and analytics related to all of this. From an implementation standpoint, the API management solution which we used in this case was IBM Data Power. Now, IBM Data Power comes with an embedded Drupal component which was used to create the developer portal portion of the equation. There was a Node.js based API implementation layer. So this was used to implement all the required business logic and the API implementation at the backend. So what are the benefits provided by this particular implementation? Innovation with the reliability of the exchange infra. So you don't need to end up creating your own simulators or whatsoever to mimic the trading platform. You get the actual exchange infra and data to play around with. Now, while doing that, the exchange knows that this is controlled usage of the APIs, right? So because there is rate limiting, there is throttling which is imposed by the gateway, there is authentication which is imposed by the gateway. So you can be sure that your APIs are exposed in a secure and controlled manner. The next benefit is easier integration with modern programming toolchain. Why is that? Because again, REST, JSON over REST, it's a language neutral way of communication. So it really doesn't matter, what kind of front end or what kind of communication you would use. You'll be able to easily integrate with these APIs. So overall, this helps in promoting an app-based ecosystem, which is good from an innovation perspective. I'll move on to the next use case, which is also for a stock exchange. Here, the objective of this particular implementation was to provide on-demand data access platform to investors, asset managers, etc., to be able to create products surrounding data-driven investment strategies. So here we have access to the exchange's real-time market data feed. We parse the feed and we store this information in time series format in a time series database. Now that we have the information in a very fine-grained format, it is possible to slice and dice this information in whatever way we want. And this is combined with data from various third-party sources. And that is precisely what helps us to create products which will drive investment strategies per se. From an implementation stack perspective, what we have used in this case is the APG API management solution. APG also comes with an embedded Drupal component, which we have used to create a developer portal. Node.js is the API backend implementation layer. And we have also implemented a chatbot based on Python. Now, looking at the key features of this particular implementation, it lets you access a real-time data feed over the internet. It gives you on-demand access to various exchange products like Bhav Copy, TWAP, VWAP, cost of carry, continuous futures, etc. It also gives you access to various combination data products, by combining economic events with corporate data. So you get economic calendar. You combine the market data with the behavior of various sectors. So in this case, auto sector behavior and various other sectors. The backend is obviously backed by a microservices based architecture, which is containerized and further enabled with a CI/CD pipeline. Now, what does Gartner say? So Gartner says that when you choose your API management solution, you need to be sure that it supports all modern API trends such as microservices and multi-cloud. And that said, I'll hand over now to your Degwi, who is the microservices/API/cloud architect from Kong. And he will show you how the statement actually correlates to what Kong has to offer us. So over to you, Degwi.
Thank you, Praveen. Yeah, so definitely I will come back to Gartner. I mean, just to reconnect back what Gartner mentioned about the new API trends. So before that, just would like to give a quick introduction about Kong as a company. I think probably some of you are already familiar with Kong because we have a very strong, foundation in open source. Kong is the probably the most popular and widely used open source API gateway out there. And Kong Inc. Incorporation is basically the company behind it, providing enterprise features and enterprise support and the professional services around this product. Okay, so Kong actually was started initially as a API marketplace. If for people who probably has heard about the Kong and the company before that, is called Marshape. It was an online API marketplace company, right? About 5 years ago, Kong pivoted to actually focus on the platform because basically our founders see the need for a solution, right? So they actually want us to have something very similar but deployed in their enterprise environment, right? Rather than coming to the online API marketplace. So since then, over the past 5 years, we have actually quite a few large enterprise customers from different, industries, because it's a platform. It can be used by obviously financial industry, retail, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. So we are still a startup company. So you can see some of the leading investors from Bay Area. So you will see some famous names, the VCs, and then Jeff Bezos and Eric. These are basically also investors in the company, right? So they believe in the vision. What Coin is doing is really helping our customers. Yeah. So as Praveen actually mentioned, so yes, there's actually a shift, right, from the old legacy to the new world. So while we are moving towards the future, we cannot leave the legacy behind, because our core system, maybe the core banking, the core backend is still running on some legacy. They are still stable, but yet we need to support new trends like microservices, new mobile services, maybe deployment of some of the new digital services in the cloud. So like in the poll, we can see actually more than half of the respondents basically mention, yeah, actually operational efficiency by integrating the legacy systems is one of the key challenge, right? And equally important, right? Enhancing customer experience, increasing business revenue are also important, but they are more like the end outcome, right? If you do the things right, if you integrate your legacy, if you're providing your new digital services, build innovation on top of what you already have, and then they will lead to a better customer experience or increased business revenue. So I should say all are equally important, but the customer experience and business revenue probably are like the end results of doing the right things. So basically, Kong is that solution that is bridging the gap. You can use Kong to govern and secure your existing APIs. At the same time, you can use Kong to basically deploy Kong in a multi-cloud environment, in a hybrid cloud environment, to support microservices, Kubernetes, and so on and so forth. So, basically as a company, we are not like IBM. We don't have like a few hundreds of products, right? So that is one of the key challenges with some of the solutions like IBM Data Power. IBM has like maybe a few solutions, right? So Data Power, API Connect, and so on and so forth. So what we do, we are very focused. The whole company is basically working on one product. Of course, like I mentioned, with the open source version of Kong at its core, right? So we actually have probably next to US. So we have probably the largest developer community in Asia, right? We have a very large developer community and user community in India, and we have a equally large developer base in China. So if you combine these two, or in the other countries like Indonesia and so on, so we actually have a much bigger developer community than the United States. So what this platform provides, of course, you can say this is more like an API management solution, but over the years it has evolved beyond the traditional API management that we know, right? Because if you consider containers and microservices, people will talk about, okay, how do I put maybe an ingress controller in Kubernetes cluster? People will talk about, okay, how do I implement a service mesh solution, right, for my microservices? So what we provide is more like an end-to-end service connectivity platform, which provides both an API gateway, ingress controller, which is based on the same core, and we also have a service mesh solution. And we actually try to work on some integration use case. We are not trying to build another enterprise service bus, but probably some lightweight integration to make the solution more complete. Actually, this is driven mainly by the the demands of our customer, right? So they have these needs, we listen and we try to enhance the product. So basically, there are a few key use cases like you see here. Is one platform, even though the box is big, in fact, if you have ever used Kong before, you know it's super lightweight, right? I mean, you can easily download and run Kong very comfortably on your laptop, in a VM, in a container environment. So these are the three key use cases, right? People use Kong when they move into decentralized environments, when they move towards from monolithic to microservices architecture. Security is very, very important, right? Especially for financial industry. So when you open up your API to, I mean, even to your internal developers or to external companies and partners, security is key, right? And then another key use case is to engage developer, right? So if you look at innovation, right, how do you drive innovation? You want to unlock, right, your capability as APIs. And then the developers, they can come to a developer portal, they can look at what APIs you provide, they can start building new applications, new digital services on top the capabilities you already have, right? So that's how you can actually drive innovation using API as basically as a tool. Okay, now connect back to what Gartner says, right? So Gartner actually published this Magic Quadrants, right, for API full life cycle API management every year. So this is the latest report published last year in September, right? So Gartner says yes, when you select API management solution, you should really consider its support for microservices and multi-cloud. So Kong is in a very unique position. That's actually one of the key reasons why Kong is positioned as a leader in the leaders quadrant last year, together with some giant companies like Google, IBM, Microsoft, right? They have been doing API management much longer, right? Like I mentioned, IBM has actually more than one product does the same thing. But Kong, as a very young company, is still a startup stage. We are actually positioned by leaders. So Gartner definitely has a lot of authority, right? So whatever Gartner says, they have done a lot of analysis and study, looking at the strengths and the weakness of each solution. So if you look at what Gartner says, basically, this is just to show you the trend. We have been in the quadrants over the past 3 years, and then is Kong consistently move up, right, towards the leaders quadrant. Unfortunately, some solutions actually fall in the wrong direction. They go the other way, right? Because maybe the company got acquired, they lose the product roadmap. They don't really have vision how they were going to continue to innovate, right? If you are interested, you can look at the charts and compare. Interestingly, you will find some vendors actually go in the wrong direction. Okay, so this is basically what Gartner says, right? In the reports, Gartner mentioned how Kong is different from other solutions. So these are the top 3, I would say, right? Kong can deploy anywhere. It's super lightweight. You can run this in any VM or container environment, in any cloud or on-premise, right? And Kong has probably the highest performance you ever get from an API management solution. So we have done a lot of testing and benchmark. You can easily achieve, actually, the latest performance benchmark results shows that you can achieve up to close to 6,000 transactions per second with a single CPU core. So that is the kind of scale you can get. Of course, Kong can scale horizontally very well, and then by adding more CPU, you can really handle a high throughput with Kong. So we actually talked to some of the largest companies in India. You know, with the population, India population, the TPS requirement can be really high, right? So certain services, especially everyone can access services from mobile now, right? So in the peak, we are probably talking about 100 or 200,000 transaction per second, right? That is actually quite normal. So we really need a very high performance solution to meet that throughput requirement. So last but not least, of course, the support for microservices container, whether you can, it's just not just about running the service in container. Of course, you can always do a lift and shift right? Package a solution and say, oh, I just package my products into a container. Okay, now it supports Kubernetes. It doesn't work that way, right? So here we are talking about native support with Kubernetes, like ingress controller. You can deploy everything using YAML file. It provides a service mesh solution by injecting sidecars into microservices and so on. So let's look at some of the references here. Basically, as mentioned, we have customers from different industries. So we have one of the largest manufacturer worldwide. It's actually from Europe. So here we are talking about 2.5 million transactions per second, right? So you can see that's kind of throughput, right? If you have a requirement like this, right? So definitely you should consider Kong is tested, validated by our customer. And of course, it's very easy to deploy Kong in different regions. So actually many of our customers do that. Many of our customers have like international operations in different countries, and they may have different requirements, right? Maybe in some region they choose Microsoft Azure to run their workload. So in some regions they use AWS, and then in the headquarters they have some on-premise workloads as well. So having the ability to run the API management solution across, different region in different environment is very, very critical. And then the airlines, how they use our developer portal to expose the API to increase revenue, right? So it's just important to have an API to increase revenue, because how often do you actually go to the airline website to book tickets? So very often we actually just go to some online travel agency, right? Because we just search. These are the travel days. Of course, unfortunately, we can't really travel now, but before that, if you want to travel, you usually go to an online travel agency to do that, right? So airlines will expose the APIs for the online travel agencies to consume. And now, of course, in the banking space, we have one of the largest Australian bank. So they are actually big into microservices, right? So they have actually, this number is should be higher. They have definitely more than 50, half of the workload already running in Kubernetes in production. So it's a very decentralized environment. They have many, actually, a cluster of Kong clusters running. So because of the Kong is super lightweight and high performance, you can easily set up a new Kong cluster, right? And it doesn't really take up too much resources. And then just want to quickly mention, right? In banking, of course, APIs are used to drive a digital transformation to move into microservices. One of the key use cases is in open banking, right? If you look at the open banking reference architecture here, you can see API is actually at the core of open banking, right? Everything is around, okay, how do you open up your services? How do you expose this to your partners? And then when you open up your APIs, how do you secure them? What are the standards, right? What are the formats? And how do you engage developers and so on? So I would say, basically, API is a core to open banking as well. And the last, before we moved into the demo, right? So which is powered by Kong in this case. Just want to quote, DBS as an example, right? So basically, many banks, basically many of our customers, they have this vision where they actually don't see them as a manufacturer or bank or insurance company. So many of them see them as a tech firm, right? They'll say, I'm a tech firm. Just happened that I'm in a banking domain, right? I have like a technology company with a banking license. I'm a tech firm, just happen to be selling insurance, right? Actually, it's not surprisingly, AWS is also, Amazon is already selling insurance, right? So this is a vision from a DBS CEO. So they have done a lot of work over the past few years to transform APIs at the core in this process, to expose their services and to engage internal, external developers, and open up their services to external partners. So with that, I'll just conclude my introduction about Kong, and then I'll pass it back to you, Praveen, for the demo. Thank you.
Thanks, Jagvi, and hello once again to everybody. Let me just switch on to the demo. I hope you are able to see my screen. So, to start off with the context for the demo, this is an open banking use case. Here we have an aggregator who has tied up with multiple partner banks to aggregate their loan offerings and to be able to provide a one-stop shop to the consumer. Now we have a car dealer who has built a mobile app using the aggregator API so that he can pass on this service to his customers. So let's start with the user experience part of the journey. And what you see on your screen right now is the car dealer's mobile app. So you will be able to see a list of various car categories: hatchback, sedan, SUV, etc. So you decide to. I hope you guys are able to see my screen, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
I can
Okay.
see.
Yeah. Yeah. So now I select a specific car category. So I'm able to see a listing of cars within that category. I choose a particular car. I get to see the specifications, etc. So now let's say I decide to purchase this car and I want to go in for a loan. So I'll need to fill in some personal information. So let me fill in some information. I fill up my name. I fill up my PAN number, mobile number, age, and click on submit. I get an OTP. I do a verification of the OTP, and what I get in return is like I will get a list of loan offerings from various banks. In this particular case, Yes Bank, PMC Bank, and Axis Bank. So I click on a particular bank, let's say Yes Bank, and now I'll be able to see all the offers from Yes Bank. So let's say I decide to take up the first offer. I just say apply, and what happens is the loan request has been sent for processing. So now let's move on to the second portion, that to be able to build this mobile app, what is it that you need access to? Yeah. So to be able to build this mobile app, you will need access to the aggregators APIs. So in this particular case, you can see that this is the aggregators developer portal. So let me just log into this portal with our developer account. So this is the home page of the aggregator portal. So we call it as NSEIT's open banking platform. You will see a bunch of products which are offered by the aggregators. So collections and deposits, funding and loans, KYC and credit agencies, etc. You go to the getting started menu. This gives you a series of steps to get started. So how do you sign up for an account? If you want to build an app, how do you register your application? Because once you register your application, then you get access to a consumer key and a consumer secret. And this needs to be embedded within the application to be able to access the APIs. And using this wrapper, you also need to be able to subscribe to the API products of your choice so that you can be using those within your application. If I go to the API documentation part of the menu, you will be able to see a range of documentation for, like, let's say auto loan, get offer, etc. So this is the API which actually fetches the offers from various banks. So you have the request parameters, you have the response parameters, etc. There is an FAQ section. The FAQ section further has various categories like general questions, registration, login, apps, API. So it has various questions and responses which will help you in the usage of these APIs. Then coming across to the catalog section. So this is the actual API catalog. And once again, you will see the various categories: loans, funding, KYC and credit agencies, collections and deposits. I think let me just log into the portal once again. So the API catalog is the area from wherein you can actually play around with the various APIs. So if I go to auto loan, again, you see a list of APIs out here. The get offer, right? So when I go to the get offer API, it actually shows me that if I have to use this particular API in my code, what are the possible ways in which I can use it? So if it is a shell, I just have to give this curl command. If it is JavaScript, this is what I have to write. So you get code snippets which you can actually copy and paste from here into your actual application. If it is Python, it is going to be this way. If it is Ruby, it is going to be this way. Now, we also spoke about the process of registering an application to be able to consume these APIs. So if at all I have to try out this particular API, I need to first of all authorize myself. So for that, I need to register an application. So if I go to the My Apps section, you'll see that we've already created an app, which is called as Auto Loan app. If I view that, I will be able to see details of that app, and I'll be able to see the client ID and client secret. This client ID is the key which will actually help authorize my request. So I'll once again go to the catalog, go into the auto loan section and the get offer API. And I go to the top of the screen and authorize myself to use the API with the help of this API key. And then I will try to actually execute this particular API. So we have a try it out section. I click on try it out. Let's say product code. I say all, and I click on execute. So now if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, this is the response that we have received. So you'll see that we have received offers from various banks. So, this is the response from Yes Bank. If I scroll below, you will see that this is the response from PMC Bank. And if I scroll down further below, you will see that we have received a response from Axis Bank. So this is exactly what happened in the mobile app. So this is a playground wherein you can try out the individual APIs, and then after feeling comfortable, you go and build your app based on the same lines. I will also show you a quick view of the administrative side of the portal. So if you look at the screen, so this is actually the dashboard when you log into the publisher portal. This has various workspaces. Here we have the open banking workspace. Let me just log in. So I go into the open banking workspace. On the left-hand side, you will see that there is an API gateway section, there is a developer portal section, there is a vitals section. So vitals is the analytics. Now, if I go into services, again, you will see the 3 services, and they were actually configured out here: funding and loans, collections and deposits, and credit agencies. You are able to see all these services on the developer portal. If I go to routes, you'll see that this is where I have configured all my API endpoints, right? So you'll be able to see the get offer API out here. So you will also see that, within services, you'll see the routes, and towards the side of it, you'll also see the plugins. So there are various plugins which are used for authentication, rate limiting, etc. So what essentially it says is that, when these APIs are served by the gateway, it will apply the authentication policy. It will apply the rate limiting policy. These policies can be applied at the route level also. It can be applied globally at a service level also. The next section is the developer portal. So this contains all the settings to configure the developer portal. And if you come to the vitals section, which is the analytics portion of it, you can, just notice a spike. This is, corresponding to the request that we just made. So this is basically, it shows the traffic related to what has been happening. So with that, we come to the end of the demo, and let me just switch back to the PPT. I hope you guys are able to see my screen. So that said, what can we offer you? NSEIT and Kong together. This is a combination of actually strategy and implementation, wherein we chalk out a roadmap for you. And this is not just restricted to APIification, but it relates to the entire application modernization space. So we help you identify monoliths in your system. How do we actually decompose that into smaller components? How do we implement these components using microservices? how do these microservices communicate with each other via ESB or let's say service mesh? How do you expose these via APIs to the external world? All of this enabled, by a CI/CD pipeline, and also with the flexible deployment model, be it on-prem or be it cloud or hybrid or multi-cloud, etc. So put together, if I have to summarize, so that would be your microservices, DevOps, and a flexible deployment model is what we have to offer you. That said, I will now hand this over back to Arpan for the final part of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Praveen and Degui. I think that was extremely useful. And what I really liked are I think the practical perspectives that you brought in for these kind of initiatives, because I'm sure in bits and pieces, in some fashion, every enterprise, all of our audience here, they're involved in some fashion. And these real life practitioners' experiences also help widen the thought process on what could be a potentially more effective approach to do this better, to do this more quickly. And really thank you for your insights. So before we get into the next poll, I'll just request the audience that if you have any questions that you would specifically want to ask the speakers, feel free to key in your questions in the chat window. We have received a few which we will definitely address at the end of the session. But just a reminder, because the more we make it collaborative, I think it'll be helpful for all of us. So feel free to just key in your questions and we will take it up at the end of the session. We'll have a quick poll now, because I'm sure there's a lot of food for thought that has been provided by Degui and Praveen based on their extensive experience globally on these implementations. Obviously, each country is different. I think Praveen gets a lot of experience from the implementations in India as well. So we would like to definitely take it forward if it makes sense to you. So would request the participants to provide your thoughts on how would you like to take this forward as a next step. Both NSEIT and Kong would be more than happy to provide a consultative approach and provide a helping hand if we can help you achieve your business and technology objectives. So the poll will help us identify who would be the people. We can plan one-on-one sessions post this. You can always reach out to us through the contact email IDs. Great. So I think it's a fair split between how detailed discussion some of you might like, that how we can help you in your API journey. So we will definitely reach out to you and explore a good time based on your availability and convenience to have a deep dive session with you, especially in your environment. So I'll just take up some of these questions that have come in through the chat. And meanwhile, if you all have, so in the interest of time, we may not be able to cover all the questions, to be very honest, but obviously you can connect with us for anything which is left unaddressed in today's session. So I think the first question that I will pick up from the participants that have been sent in, this question is addressed to Praveen. So Praveen, it's an interesting question. So one of our participants would like to know that what is the difference between an API gateway and a service mesh? Because a lot of these things, I think terms are used pretty casually and replaced one with the other, but I'm sure technically you'll have a better appreciation of what differs between a typical API gateway and a service mesh.
I think that's a very valid question and a very interesting question, Arpan. So the thumb rule is the API gateway is for external communication and the service mesh is for internal asynchronous communication. The functions of the API gateway, as I said, to be able to expose your APIs in a secure and controlled manner. So the gateway is the one that is responsible for authenticating and authorizing each and every request that comes from the external world to ensure that this comes from an authorized user and from an authorized application. Now, the service mesh part of it. So the service mesh basically abstracts non-functional requirements away from the microservice. So it plugs onto the microservice in the form of a sidecar. The sidecar is responsible for performing all the non-functional requirements on behalf of the microservice so that the microservice is able to focus purely on the business logic. All these sidecars in turn connect to a control plane, and the control plane is responsible for enforcing uniform or microservice specific policies by injecting them onto the sidecars. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Praveen. I think that was a fairly exhaustive answer and would have helped the participants. The next question we have here, I think I would say it would be directed to you, Degui, because it's a very uh, platform specific query. So the question that has come in says that how many microservices or APIs can I add on Kong? Is there any kind of a restriction, or if you could kindly address that, Degui?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as I mentioned, Kong is highly scalable. So there are two aspects to it, right? One is how many APIs you can register, but that usually is not a concern because it's just a definition, it's just a path to your APIs that goes through Kong. So the other aspect is how many concurrent requests, which is more critical. Like I mentioned, you can find a performance benchmark on our website, right? So we publish the performance benchmark, and so one CPU core can support up to 6,000 transactions per second. So that is the extreme, it's a very high number. And then you can easily scale Kong out horizontally by adding more CPU cores, right? If you need like to support like a 2 million concurrent requests, like one of the manufacturer I mentioned, you can just, deploy more CPU cores to that horizontally. So hopefully that answers the question.
Absolutely. I think that helps. And that's also, I think, encouraging because the world we live in, it becomes extremely critical to kind of be able to scale horizontally. And good to know that Kong supports that. Next question is also, I think, would need your assistance to address, Degui. It's more to do with the deployment piece of it. So this question that's come in is, can Kong be deployed in public cloud or on-prem?
Yes. So basically, like I said, yeah, almost everywhere, right? Kong supports VM deployment, container, Kubernetes. So basically means as long as you have a virtual machine or a container platform, it doesn't really matter which cloud or whether it's a private cloud, public cloud, on premise. You should be able to deploy Kong, yeah, in those kind of environments. Yeah.
Fantastic. I know we've reached the top of the hour, but I'll take the liberty to take a couple more minutes because these are very interesting questions which have come in, and I'm sure the audience would definitely want to spend a couple of more minutes to know, because these would be questions, maybe somebody has raised it, but many more may have it in their mind. So this, I think, is very interesting because today, obviously, we all know about the benefits, but again, we are all terrified with security. Like we are seeing what's happening with the WhatsApp privacy change regulations, which they brought in and had to take back for now. So this question is for Praveen. It's more on the security side. So Praveen, one of our participants would want to know that how do we ensure secure APIs exposed to third-party applications? So that's when you are connecting with applications beyond your purview, how do you ensure that you can secure those APIs?
Yeah, so in fact, security is a core function of the API gateway. And, Kong provides a role-based access control mechanism to manage security. Also, you would have noticed, when I showed the administrative portion of the Kong portal, I said that there are various plugins which can manage this. So you would have seen some security-based plugins, and these plugins allow a security and traffic control related policies to be applied both at an API level as also at an API product slash service level. So Kong offers you a lot of flexibility in being able to manage the security related to your entire offering.
Great. I think that's an extremely critical piece when you think from a practical implementation perspective. And I think the next question is also extremely critical when we think of a practical implementation. So, Degui, this question is possibly for you. See, all said and done, as much as we may want to move to the new age things, we do have to survive and live with the legacy. So, a question which has come in is, how difficult or easy is it to migrate from a typical legacy API gateway to using something such future-proof or new age like Kong? So how do you, is it very difficult if I already have some kind of a legacy API gateway to migrate to Kong?
Yeah, so sure. So I think that's where NSEIT will come in, right, to provide the expertise and local professional services to do this. I think NSEIT has a lot of domain and experience. So basically, I think based on my experience, migrating API gateway is much more straightforward when you talk about migrating application, right? If you look at how to transform the monolith application into microservices, that is actually more they will involve more work. But API gateway is pretty straightforward, right? It's all about your API endpoints. Usually it's in the kind of a standard HTTP or HTTPS definition. And then the next part is the security policies, right? So if you have authentication policy, if you have a rate limiting caching, basically that translates into the plugin configuration, right? As Praveen demonstrated in the demo just now. So I think just these two parts, and as I assure you, it's it's actually quite straightforward. Having said that, because the API gateway is already running in production, so typically customer will take a phased approach, right? That means they probably will put Kong to run in parallel with the API gateway you already have. Either, the new workload goes through Kong, or you place Kong behind or before the current gateway, and then you slowly move the APIs away from legacy to Kong, right? So usually it's not a big bang approach where you just ship everything over like overnight. Usually is a transition. That is a more practical approach to actually migrate. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think what we have seen with our customers, it's also about two pieces. So one is migrating the data, where Kong offers RESTful APIs that you can easily use to migrate data from an existing gateway to Kong. And uh, you can export your data in either JSON or CSV, etc. And the second part of it is then looking at migrating the network settings once the data has got migrated. So I don't think it's very difficult from the way we have seen it happening, but that obviously each experience will bring in some innovation. I think we will close the webinar now. I think one quick last question, Degui, I couldn't stop myself from asking because different heterogeneous setups exist with various customers. There's a quick question that how compatible is Kong with different technology stacks?
Yeah, so due to time constraint, we can't really do a technical deep dive. So there are some questions. I think some mentioned they want to have probably know Kong more. Yeah, basically Kong is based on industry standards, right? Including the tech stack, the API contract is based on standard HTTP, HTTPS JSON format. We support a Swagger Open API specification. The underlying core is Nginx. So the whole stack is based on open source and proven technology. We use Postgres and Cassandra as data store. We support Linux and Docker and Kubernetes as the runtime environment. So, and then the plugins basically is all built on the open standards, right? We can integrate with external login server, identity provider over the OAuth 2.0, OpenID Connect, etc. So I think there's a lot to cover. Basically, just in summary, I think Kong is built based on the the industry standard protocols and platforms, and as the total solution. All right.
Fantastic. So with that, we'll close the session today. Thank you so much, Degui and Praveen, for sharing your insights. And thank you so much, our dear audience, for spending your time this afternoon with us. With that, this is your host, Arpan, signing off. Hope to catch up with you sometime soon and helping you on this API journey.
Thank you so much.